Good morning, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Glory Sessions. Oh God, I haven't changed the name of this equality. That's the last one. Made a mistake there. But anyway, I haven't been on for a while. So, yeah, I've been thinking a lot, and everyone knows the crap. The situation we're all in, the whole world's in, it's affecting a lot of people. And it got me thinking a lot. So it brought me back to the ayahuasca journey and it's sort of the person I was and how I reacted before ayahuasca and after ayahuasca. Yes, another ayahuasca journey talking. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because if you know what I always say that we see everything we see and the stories we build and how we see the world is based upon our experiences, our perception in life, etc. So the ayahuasca gave me a different experience, a different perception on how to look at things, and it sort of dominated my way of thinking these days. And one of the things that I noticed about the ayahuasca was after every journey, after every experience, the following day we would go into a room and we would do this integration, which is basically where we all got together and we all basically exposed ourselves to being judged, very vulnerable. We spoke how we felt, and the ayahuasca brought this out in you, but you would speak from an emotional perspective and a point of view that most people wouldn't talk like in a normal setting because it did make you feel it did leave you open to ridicule, it left you open to being laughed at and judged. But the one thing I did notice was that when you had the courage to talk, to speak the truth and be vulnerable and let yourself be exposed to being ridiculed or judged for sharing your true emotions in that room, it felt safe. There was a collective, there was a joining of people and a coming together of people. And that coming together, when you listen to other people's stories, you started to recognize similar stories within your own story, and you realize that you weren't that different from other people, and that sort of coming together and acceptance, that being willing to be vulnerable, meant that you could connect with people on a much deeper level, and then that connecting of a deeper level meant that you were far more willing to open up and speak the truth, and then that led to more deeper conversations. And like a month later, like in the WhatsApp group, the of those boys and girls that were at that group, we're still very supportive of each other. And I've noticed that over the last 16 months, society has been completely separated, and we've been broken apart. And I'm talking about this. Yeah, I'm a gym owner, and I've noticed it in the gym myself. I've noticed there's a lot less people turning up to their usual sessions. Okay, it's July. A lot of people are probably on holiday as well, but there is that element of fear amongst a lot of people. We've been we've been conditioned to fear your neighbor, fear your family member, fear your mum and dad, fear your brother and sister. It's almost like the American Civil War where you've got the families divided into two and they're going to fight against each other. And we're coming to that point where we're not willing to actually look at each other and maybe accept each other for our own beliefs and not the belief in the TV, not the belief that the internet's telling us to believe against each other. And it's upsetting because you see so many, like, what we don't seem to realize is our actions today are dictating the future of our children. And this is why I'm so serious about this. Our children are watching us fighting against each other. They're watching us glued to our phones, engaged in debates and arguments with people we don't even know. And they're starting to accept that as their reality. And they're starting to, like, whether you believe this or not, it's up to you. But like Tesla showed it, the universe is made up of three things: frequency, energy, and vibration. You know, the frequency we vibrate at is going to determine the energy we live in. So the energy we're as a collective, as a world, we're putting out at the moment is very, very repressed. It's very suppressed. It's very negative. It's a low energy. We're vibrating at a low energy, and you can see it. Look on Instagram. Look on Facebook. Look in the paper. Look on the TV. That COVID word is just swamping the entire narrative. The vax is just dividing humanity. And we're now coming to the point where there is a section of the community who is actively screaming for those who disagree with their opinion to be locked up, to do deprived rights. It's literally Germany 1936. It's what's happening, and the history is repeating itself. And we're so naive, so arrogant, so up our own arses that we believe we are right, that we're cheering it on, because it's very easy to go onto Facebook and Instagram and to be locked in that echo chamber, because the algorithms are just feeding you what you need to hear, what you want to hear, which is going to support your narrative. And it's very easy for us to ignore the other narratives. And listen, I'm guilty as everyone. In fact, I'm probably more guilty than others of doing this. But since the ayahuasca, it's really changed me, and it's making me look at things in a different perspective. And I'm sad for the world, because we're creating an environment where control, suppression of freedoms is cheered on. And because it's cheered on, we're no longer willing to take the actions required to fight for our children's futures. And I know I'm on a gym page, and I understand that, but this it's affecting my business, it's affecting other people's business, it's affecting our lifestyle, and ultimately the business I'm in is changing lives. My goal is not to get people fit. My goal and my aim, and you ask any of my members or anyone's working with me, is always to change the mindset of that person, to equip that person with the ability to think for themselves and to act for themselves. And we're losing that ability. The internet, TV, the TV channels, the new magazines and newspapers, they're slowly chipping away at our belief system. They're making us believe that our beliefs are our beliefs, but they're not. We've been conditioned to believe that, to think this is our way of thinking. But the majority are thinking the way they want to be, the way those in power want us to think. They want us to live in fear. They want us to live in fear of each other, because the divided society is easy to control. And if you doubt this, anyone who lives in Northern Ireland and is my age, think back to growing up. Think back to when you were 15, 16-year-old in the 90s, and the fear we used to live in. Now, I'm a nationalist, and a lot of my friends, and because I work and live in Lisburn, a lot of my friends were unionist, loyalist, and a lot of my friends back then were nationalist Republican. And I've got a good perspective of both. Now, my partner, she is not a nationalist, so we live in a we're in a mixed relationship. But think about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, how much fear and how much resistance there was to interact with other sections of the community. And when it comes down to it, Paddy from the Falls and Sammy from the Shankill, they've both got the similar fears and worries. Let's say both plumbers, both got kids, they've both got relationships, they're both struggling with debt, they're both worried about their children, they're both thinking about the same sort of scenario that's being pushed in their mind from the TV. And that created this division amongst us all. And that led to 40 years of murder, 40 years of blowing up, 40 years of fear. Like, think about this. We lived in a country where people were willing to break down the door of someone else's door and walk in and shoot that person dead in front of their family, simply because they were from a different religion, a different side of the community. Like, that's madness. And it's obvious now that the people of the North have not learned from their mistakes. We're back to that square one. We're back to actually, in fact, it's worse, because we've got the internet, and we've got our Facebook and our Instagram at hands, and we're so easily able to vent our frustrations and anger. And ultimately, what we write and how we react to other people's opinions, it's a reflection of our own thoughts. What we're doing is we are casting our own thoughts onto other people, and we're leaving ourselves open to be judged by others. We may be thinking we're righteous and we're correct in what we're saying, but when we spill that vileness and we spill that evil and that anger, all we're doing is letting the world see our true feelings, the true inner you. And you can see it. It's full of fear. It's everything we do is based on fear. Everything we do, all this hate, all this anger, all this we must control the other side, it's based upon fear. And where does that fear come from? Where is that fear started from? That fear started from the people on the top. It trickles down. The average guy in the street is not a hateful person. but we've been taught to hate the other side because of the fear message that's being pushed continually upon us. It's depressing me. It's so sad to see that so many people are willing to hating each other and to scream that other people have their rights removed because of a fear that we've been taught. Whether you believe COVID is real or not is irrelevant. Our actions are dictating other people's lives. And just because, like, I like this analogy, like everyone's saying, like, oh, COVID, we're in the real boat, we're in the same boat. No, we're not. We're not in the same boat. We're in different boats. We might be on the same ocean, but that ocean is fucking massive. And on one part of the ocean, you're going to have waves, you're going to have storms, and the other side of the ocean is going to be calm. And some people may be in a super yacht, some people may be in a ship, other people may be in a rowing boat with no oars, and the fucking storm's thrown. And then we're sitting here in our own opinions and our own wee world, judging these people, not realizing, not understanding what they're going through. I know so many people I'm lucky. My business has survived so far, touch wood. But I know so many people have lost their businesses. I know so many people that have spent their life building something, working their balls off to provide for a family, and it's now been denied. And now they're being forced, and this is the problem. They're being forced to take a shot in order to get back to humanity, to get back to their own lives. And we'll have people screaming that other people should be forced against their will to do something because the fear narrative is telling us something. And we're not willing to step back and look at the other person's perspective and look at from that person's point of view and understand them as a human being. Like, we're meant to be intelligent. This is meant to be the point of society where we know more, we experience more, we can think for ourselves, and we've got this ability to look at each other. We're meant to be in this woke society where everyone's meant to, accept each other for who they are. But it seems to be only accept each other for who they are if it's runs congruent with these people's thoughts. If you dare speak out against that, or you dare share a different opinion, you're cancelled. Folks, this is not the way to live a life. Can people not see what's happening? Like, I know for a fact, 100%, that we can heal ourselves. Absolutely. And the reason I know that is because I experienced ayahuasca. I walked into a room with 26 people and that I didn't really know. I didn't know any of them. And I watched every single one of them being willing to be themselves, to leave themselves open for ridicule and judgment. And because they done that, because they were willing to do that, others were willing to do it as well. And that formed a bond. And that brought us closer together. People you didn't know, you became very close to because they were willing to. You could see yourself in each and every one of them. And I can guarantee, if you were to, instead of going onto Facebook and ranting your angry rant, which I've done 100,000 times, instead of doing that, actually got to know that person and speak to that person and ask them why they think that and what their own personal experiences are, you would understand that they're speaking from a point of fear. Like, the reality is 2020, 2021 has been the years where we've been conditioned to fear death. Why are we scared of dying? Because we know on the other side. But we've always died. We're literally born to die. That's the one guarantee in life. When you're born, you can guarantee you're going to die. Now, how long you live is subjected to the will of the universe. But every single person, whether you live for 30 seconds, or you live for 30 years, or you live for a century, you've lived a lifetime. The problem is that we don't believe we have a set standard, shall we say, of what a lifetime is. And if people don't achieve this life, well, then they've been deprived of it. But we don't know that. And I can go really deep here, and I am now of a total belief, from the amount of psychedelics I've done, I am of the total belief that we are here for an experience. We are consciousness experience, having a human experience, and we're here for a lesson. And if that we could be here to teach someone a lesson, we could hear for a lesson ourselves. But once that lesson's learned, we're gone. We're moving on, and I believe then we're reincarnated, and we're in the next life, and we learn another lesson, and we continue that cycle until we're enlightened. Now, people may laugh at that. Some people are atheist. I was atheist. Some people are Christian. That's fine. They have different beliefs, but ultimately, that's my belief, and I like it. It's a comforting belief for me because it means that no matter what, there's a purpose for living. There's a purpose for life, but we've now forgot about that, and we're thinking that we can't die. We shouldn't. People should not die. No, people will die, and regardless of what you try to do to stop it, it's going to happen. But the sin is people aren't living. We're fearful of actually living now because we've been conditioned to fear death. Like the news, all it is how many people had died over 2020. There was a counter on the TV channels, every TV telling you how many, the daily death count, the total death count. That's subliminal messaging. That's just subconsciously programming your mind to fear death. Like everything was focused on death, 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 death. And it's still focused on death, 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 death. And we're so focused on death, no one wants to live. No one wants to actually go out and spend time creating memories anymore because they fear their neighbor. They fear bumping into people. You can see people moving away from each other. You can see people screaming at each other for not wearing a mask, even though the science doesn't prove it right. And there'll be people saying, well, this scientific evidence does prove it right. And then there's this scientific evidence doesn't prove it right. So we're just fucking shouting our own opinions based upon our own information, based upon the sites we follow, the people we follow, the people we listen to. The news articles we read and watch. The reality is 99.9% of us don't know what the crack is. Even the virologists, the genetic biologists, all these people, someone will give me will give me something that shows that COVID is real, and I'll give them an information from a really extracted guy that says it isn't. The reality is we don't know. We're fitting things in our own perspective, but this distraction is taking away our ability to live. And it's so sad to think, like, can you imagine speaking to your children the way you speak to people on Facebook? Would you do it? No, we wouldn't. Because we love and care. Those children are our most important possessions. We live our lives for them. But we're not. Because we're not, even though like 6 months ago, I don't want to get into this vaccine shit, but like we're talking about injecting kids at 5 and 6. That's madness. Do you know, for a virus doesn't work, doesn't exist in their lives really. That's not going to kill them. We're willing to put a trial of something that's on trial into their bodies. That's our fear. That's on us. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it for the fear within us. And that is going to create another separation in society. And we're going to go down this route continually. We're going to continue to go down this road of fighting each other, trying to actually prove our position correct, as opposed to trying to come up with a solution. And why are we wasting so much of our lives, so much of our time fighting against each other because we've got a different opinion? This is crazy, folks. It's affecting all of our lives. No one's living anymore because they're fearful of dying. But death's going to come to us anyway. It's really getting to me. I'm seeing so many people just willing to hate each other and to wish each other death and to wish their other people's human rights be deprived because of a difference of opinion. Think of that. People who you spoke to 16, 17 months ago, people you'd have been happily going out drinks with, because they've had a difference of opinion, because they've looked at something differently. There are so many of us now wishing death and wishing destruction and wishing human rights removals on these people. Folks, that's not being human. That's evil. That's just, but it's based on fear. There's no way in this earth anyone would get on like this if we based our thoughts on love. But the very word love is now laughed at in society by a lot of people. It's embarrassing. You're embarrassed to say that. But living in fear is fine. Living in fear is accepted. What is going on with us? What has happened in this world that we're just so willing to give up our life for this semblance of safety? Like, so many of us are begging the governments to take away more of our freedoms and just just make us feel like we're safe, make us feel that somehow we're not going to die. And if someone does die, I want to blame someone. And it's not going to be the government. It's going to be your neighbour. It's going to be the person on Facebook. It's going to be someone you've never met, someone who's so similar to you, but it makes you feel safer because you can't blame the government because the government are here to protect us. Do you know, I know people are going to disagree with me here, but folks, we need to stop fighting against each other and we need to start actually learning to love each other again and accepting everyone as a human being. Because those fears you have, that's been manipulated. It's been created based upon the experience you've had and what you've listened to and what you've watched. And the people who have a different opinion, they've also got fears. If you believe that COVID is real and you believe that the measures being taken by the governments is right, then you're living in fear of death. You're living in fear of your loved ones dying. It's a real life fear. But the people who are against it and don't believe everything's been said, they're living in fear as well. They're living in fear of our freedom, of our rights to be removed. So there's two things. There's two opposite opinions happening, and we're conflicting. Meanwhile, the people in charge are just loving it because they can implement more and more and more restrictive measures. And remember, it's not going to happen overnight. This is what people need to understand. This does not happen overnight. This is a drip, drip, drip effect. They'll remove one of our rights, a couple of our rights, and then our children will grow up accepting that as normal. And then they will have children. And then as they get adults, more of their rights will be removed and their children will grow up accepting that as normal. And before you know it, you're in a position where society is completely controlled. We don't have any rights at all. We have to do what we're told in order to get food, in order to get money, in order to live what we want, in order to have the job we want. And people can't see this because people are so focused on the COVID problem and living in this, I don't know. Yeah. Personally, I think genuinely, I believe that ayahuasca is the cure for everything. I'm joking, but like, if you're going to go for government, you should be a requirement that you do like 2 ceremonies of ayahuasca and bufo iris. Because if you do that shit, your ego dies. You suffer the ego death, and there's no way on this earth you're going to be living. You're going to be making those decisions based on fear, because that's what it is. It's ego. It's fear. Remember, those people in power, they're human beings. They've got fears. In fact, they probably don't trust people more than us because their friends aren't friends. Their friends are people that are going to look to take their position as soon as possible. They've got their own agendas. And so they're reacting to fear. And everything fucking in this planet is reactive of fear. Yeah, and this goes back like millennials. Think about it. In the Roman times, the Christians were persecuted. Skip forward 1,000 years. The Christians were the ones burning people and killing people and torturing people because they didn't believe in a God. So your belief was different. Therefore, we fear you. Therefore, we're going to kill you. And that has been the way humanity's been for forever. And we're too blind to see it. We're so egotistical, so arrogant right now that we believe that we wouldn't do that. And yet, the proof is in the pudding. We're dividing humanity. We're hating each other. We're fighting against each other. For what? For what? Why are we refusing to live our lives anymore? Like, I see so many people, they're overweight, they're miserable, they're depressed. And do you think this is helping us? We're so focused on the message of COVID that no one's actually seeing that what's happening in the back, like the people who are dying of cancer, the children who are being sexually and physically abused in their homes because of lockdowns, the children and the families who have no food because of no jobs, they're relying on the government. The people who are being thrown in the debt, they're going to be homeless because they can't afford their house anymore. These are also aspects in society that's been affected, but we forgot about it. And if you talk about these things, you're ridiculed. You're told it's not important at the moment. Do you not see what's happening? Do you not see how wrong that is? Are you not concerned? Oh, sorry. I'm not concerned about other people. If we are so concerned, like people like to say, I'm taking this for my family, I'm taking this for my friend and family, then why are we not focusing on the other people who are truly suffering due to the lockdown restrictions, due to the actions the governments have taken? Why are we not focusing on these people? Why have they been forgotten? Why are they the unspoken numbers, the shadow people that just don't matter because it's not about COVID? Folks, we all need to wait. Dana, how's it going? Folks, we all need to wake up. This is bigger than a few thousand deaths. This is people. This is people's lives. This is being affected. And yes, I know there are people dying, and it's tragic, but people have always died. But we really have got to the point where no one's willing to live anymore. Anyway, I'm ready to be depressed. Speak to you all soon.